So, Joe, my Portuguese friend, you know that June 1st is Azores Day, or as the Portuguese would call it, you call it
Dia dos Azores.
And the difference between that and St. Patrick's Day?
What?
Everyone wants to be Irish on St. Patrick's Day.
And here I thought you were doing real research. Looking up Day of Azores. I'm like, what the fuck is
Which
this?
is June 1st. I expect a big show.
Timely.
A big show.
Oh, but then you tied it in with the...
And then I tied it in with
the drunk day.
Right,
Yes.
Exactly.
Hi, everybody.
This is Jacques.
I'm Joe, and welcome to Carnival Personnel. Man, do we have a lineup ready for you.
We do. First, we haven't said in a while. Nobody cares, but you can follow Joe on the Twitter at OptiGrabber and at Carnival Podcast. Also on Facebook at Facebook.com/Carnival Podcast.
Look at you with the plugs.
There's been there's been a couple comments as of lately,
Both of them from the same person.
Maybe not glowing comments, but there's been comments nonetheless. A big week for Joe. Last week we talked at length, and rightfully so, about Weird Al Yankovic and Emo Phillips show. And this week he breaks some ground, makes some history.
Yep, with his new single, Hamilton Polka, which is a polka medley of all of your favorite songs from the musical Hamilton. Debuted at number, I think, 23 on the digital top 100, which for Billboard, which I think is the first time a polka song ever cracked the top 100 in their debut. There might have been a couple of stragglers that, debuted below the 100 that eventually made it to number one, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
But congratulations to Weird Al and all Weird Al fans like Joe who have helped to make polka and music history. I said it like it's two things, like polka and music history, versus just saying music history.
Yeah, right. It's one of those songs that I can't really fully appreciate because I haven't seen Hamilton. I haven't listened to the soundtrack enough, but the Hamilton polka, it's a Weird Al song, so I have to listen to it, and it's funny
and legally obligated to like it.
No, right, exactly. There's a long-term contract I had to sign. But what made me enjoy it even more was watching Lin-Manuel Miranda's reaction, who wrote Hamilton, and Jimmy Fallon's reaction, who I guess is just best friends with everybody. Listen to the debut of the album, and they videotaped their physical reactions, and that made me happy. Sometimes in this cynical world, I can find a gleam of genuine just happiness in people, and I think Jimmy Fallon sort of does that. I kind of forgive him for tussling Donald Trump's hair.
No,
I kind of forgive him. You know what? It's not. You have to forgive those who have harmed you, because otherwise you're only harming yourself, Jacques.
What do they say? Forgive, don't forget.
Right.
So it is, St. Patrick's Day, and I will honestly say I played on a hockey team in LA for a few years called Pogue Mahone, which is
Polka Mahone?
Pogue Mahone, which is Gaelic for kiss my ass. Yeah. And the jerseys were the Irish flag. Everybody had a Mick in front of their name. So it was McGrice, McMasterson, McLebear. Very funny. Not really sure what St. Patrick's Day is. I've only grown up in Boston, used to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, or used to have a reason to drink that much. Something about chasing snakes out of Ireland, but I don't really know the significance of it.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like the way the Italians celebrate Columbus Day. Actually, no, it's nothing like the way the Italians celebrate Columbus Day.
How about Cinco de Mayo?
Yes, very good. The Mexican. It's not even Mexican Independence. Is it Mexican Independence Day? No,
it's Drink Like You're Irish Day in Mexico.
I think it translates to St. Patrick's Day in Spanish, Cinco de Mayo. But yeah, you're right. St. Patrick's Day doesn't have any. Actually, it has the opposite effect on our household, because my management despises St. Patrick, because the driving the snakes was actually the Catholics driving the Wiccans, or the original Gaelic people, that religion out of Ireland. Yeah, so that was an allegory for driving out the old religion of Ireland and bringing in the new. An improved Ireland.
The Inquisition. Let's begin.
I can't talk him out of anything.
Oh, so on other happy news, we will move on. I don't know if he is Irish, but Joe has not heard who Jason Triplett is, but he was the man in the Elsa dress whose video of him pushing a stuck in snow Boston paddy wagon out of the snow the other day.
Oh.
You didn't see this clip?
No, I don't have Elsa videos on my YouTube feed like you do.
No, it was all over Twitter. It was everything. So this guy, he's a tall guy, and you see him. He's full on. It's during the latest snowstorm, not the one in which I broke my foot. The one after I broke my foot. 3 and 12 days, and he was walking around. He and his buddies were bar hopping, and he thought it'd be hilarious to bar hop dressed fully on Elsa. And there's a paddy wagon that literally is stuck in a snowbank, and instead of his buddy helping him push it out, he thought, wouldn't this be great to take a video? And it is. If you look it up, just put like Elsa, paddy wagon,
Elsa Snow.
Elsa Snow.
No, wait, that's
but it was, and it was one of those stories that here's a guy. Is he cosplaying? Is he being funny? Is he, gay? Don't know. Doesn't matter. He saw, somebody in trouble and help. And he's like, yeah, I've pushed out, I'm from Baton Rouge, but he's lived in Boston for like 15 years. He's like, I've pushed 1,000 cars out of snow because I didn't think about it. But the video's hilarious. He's trying to push it. And then he has to hike up his skirt to get more leverage to push it out. And it was a very funny video. It was very nice. And it's it's one of those things.
Now, did he keep pushing it or did he let it go?
Oh, he pushed it. He pushed it real good.
Did he keep pushing it or did he let it go?
See, you went the frozen route,
yes,
which is the way to have gone.
Right.
I went the salt and pepper way.
Yes.
It's never the wrong way to go.
No.
But not as appropriate.
Yes.
So with the shitstorm that is the world, I want to start off with a couple of those good things and talking about outings. I doubt I can talk you into the big outing that AMC Theater is having, or a marathon of all the Marvel movies leading up to the new Avengers.
Now wait a second. I see on your paper here it says May 3rd. I thought it got bumped up to April 27th. Or am I wrong?
Oh, well, you know what? Maybe you're right. They have moved up for a week, but AMC hasn't changed their website. Maybe they haven't updated that.
Yeah, I don't want you showing up a week after its premiere.
Exactly. But 31 hours of Marvel magic.
Wow, that's pathetic. That is a lot of time to spend in front of the movie screen. Are there going to be bathroom breaks, or are they going to be...
it's called Thor 2. No, I'm just kidding. I liked Thor 2, The Dark World. I liked it very, very much. You've seen all the movies, so I can go pee now. I can drift off during this.
Is our friend Sam in town? Can he make the trek with you?
I believe he could. That would be... And he's young enough to be able to stay up 31 hours.
He's young enough to be appropriate to go to one of these outings.
What are you saying?
See what I mean there is, you're old, man. But so, okay, well, that's going to be a fun time. I mean, how many hours do you think you're going to go? Are you going to be like, first in line? And
I would, if I can move the pieces around the board to do it, I would do it. I would just power through it. I mean, I really think I could do it.
Do they have a ramp?
Let's see, that's even April. Yeah, so I would probably be in a walking boot or out of this by now. And what a way to celebrate finally being able to walk.
Sitting down
for 31 hours.
Yeah, boy.
So I was recovering. I was at the parents' house last night, and it's funny. I was doing show rundown, and it's 9:30 at night, and my dad came down, and Joe's smirking because he's waiting for the punchline. And I'm literally working, and I'm telling my dad basically how Joe and I do the show. And he was stunned because MSNBC was on, and he wasn't aware he got that channel. It was an O&E.
Was he trying to figure out how to put a parental block?
Right. And it was weird because he was watching facts, and I was explaining how, it's so frustrating because usually on a Thursday I do the sheet and I'll send it to Joe, and Joe might make some corrections or, things that will happen. But by the time from Thursday to Friday, it's outdated. By the time we record Saturday, it's outdated. And then by the time it airs Monday at midnight, it might as well be a World War II broadcast. We might as well be telling people about VJ Day. And he was like, yeah, the news really changed. I'm like, yeah, it's just a real pain in the ass. Just as I say that, the news breaks in that McCabe got fired.
Yep. Andrew McCabe?
You're fired.
Yeah, you're fired. He was FBI deputy director.
I mean, this is a guy who's a 21-year, and he's been singled out by Bloatis, and he's been telling Session to fire him. And there was some internal investigation that wasn't concluded yet or whatever. What's great is Jeff Session releases a tweet saying he didn't uphold the standards we expect to all employees to, hold like accountability, honor, and integrity. It's like, okay, so Jeff Sessions was put up for federal judgeship 15 years ago, and because of his racist past, couldn't pass it was like 2003, 2004. It was a GOP House and Senate back then. He couldn't get approved because he was that much of a racist back then. And I'm confused. Is he the same, Keebler elf that had to recuse himself from the Russia investigation because he was caught perjuring himself 4 different times about, I never met with Russians. Oh, I met those Russians, but I didn't meet other Russians. Okay, I met those Russians, but I didn't talk about that. Okay, I met those Russians and I didn't talk about that, but I didn't give him a reach around, know. But for him to come out, and the shitty thing is, like, McCabe was less than 48 hours away from retiring. And if he gets fired, and I don't know the whole thing, but I guess he loses his lifetime pension.
Yeah, he was working for 21 years he's a lifelong Republican. Let's not forget that. Like, he's not like some liberal, snowflakey kind of guy.
And what is Mueller?
I believe he's a Republican.
And Comey?
He was a Republican.
Okay,
I think he still is a Republican.
All these sons of bitches are.
Yes.
Okay, just all right.
Yeah, but yeah, he was literally 2 days away from retirement.
10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and he gets fired over a tweet. And and it's not unlike what happened prior in the Trump administration. You were originally, before that news broke on Friday,
right?
You were originally going to talk about Rex Tillerson getting fired,
who again, was in the bathroom, and when he saw on Twitter he had just been fired.
Yeah,
like flying back from his African trip. I think it was in Africa where he talked about that. It's really weird that the day he was fired, he came out very harshly against Putin directly and sanctions because the UK, Theresa May, had just, spoke in the House of Parliament in England about, we are under attack. This is an act of war. And, we are taking actions against, Putin and his regime. And Rex Tillerson came out and said, yeah, no one said the Article 5 of the NATO treaty where, you attack one, you attack them all, but they both came up pretty close to the line. And this is the harshest anybody in the administration has said directly. Yes, Russia did this horrible thing. They used chemical weapons in a civilian setting. They're assassinating people on foreign soil. We're not going to put up with it, period, the end. Lo and behold, just a few hours later, he gets fired via tweet from, and then the whole, it's a whole thing where John Kelly had said, oh, we didn't know anything about Porter beating his wives, although we were told since day one from the FBI he can't get it. And John Kelly's trying to protect Trump, saying, oh, I tried to call him, but I didn't get a hold of him. It's like beforehand. You fired the Secretary of State. Like, the whole world found out before he did.
As it should be in the Trump administration.
Well, that's how Comey had found out.
Yeah, it's a pattern. But what are you going to do? It's nobody's safe. John Kelly's on the bubble kind of. Ben Carson, another.
Well, it was funny because it's 8:30. It's 8 o'clock. It's 7:30. Somewhere around that time.
Eastern Daylight Time.
And it wasn't. I'm trying to run down the list. It wasn't McCabe. It was I can't even think of the guys now. Homeland Security guy, McMaster.
Oh yeah.
And the word was, and a big report came out on Thursday. It was Thursday night that Washington Post had broken that 15 different people in the White House had said he's getting fired today. He's getting fired tonight. And Huckleberry Sanders comes out, about 10 o'clock and releases a tweet saying, no one's getting fired. He has a great relationship with Bloatis. and there's no big shakeup coming. And then Kelly, Friday afternoon, had a big staff meeting and said, all the reports of chaos and all the reports of people getting fired and all the reports of cleaning house are fake news. It's not happening. Everybody relax. Go home and have a good weekend. McCabe, not so fast. Like, honestly, after spending 24 hours saying, no, it's stable. There's nobody's leaving. Everything fine. Leslie Nielsen with the fireworks going off behind him. Nothing to see here. As Rome is burning, Caesar screaming to the masses.
But if you notice that all of their responses officially are, there are no firings. There's nothing happening now, current, presently. As of this second, nobody is fired.
Right.
Close the doors. Okay, everybody's fired.
and seriously, the chaos. And then, of course, you have, and again, it's not Democrats. It's not the liberal media. It's not Joe and I screaming in his basement to each other and no one else.
And Richard.
Thank you. Hello, Richard. And but what it is you had, like, I'm blanking on his name, like the youngest, most decorated, like 4-star general came out yesterday, and he said, it's like, bloat is harming the United States. I mean, you have and it's one of those things.
And he was reluctant to say that.
He was
I'll look
reluctant,
up his name.
right? And he did not hold back. He flat out said that he is completely dangerous to our democracy and way of life. And it's going to be really interesting to see if, Donnie Two Scoops says anything about this guy, because a decorated war hero, a couple Purple Hearts, a couple Silver Stars, a 4-star general, 3 or 4 deployments. And he's saying it. And then you have other past, heads of the FBI coming out and saying, this is really awful. And one former FBI agent said, you will not destroy America. America will survive you. You will, and I'm trying to think of the exact quote. It's like, you will be remembered in the dustbin of America as, like, being the worst, but America will survive you.
Yeah, that's hopefully there will be an America left to survive Trump. But retired General Barry McCaffrey did the tweet that said, quote, reluctantly, I have concluded that President Trump is a serious threat to U.S. national security. He's refusing to protect vital U.S. interests from active Russian attacks. It is apparent that he is, for some unknown reason, under the sway of Mr. Putin. End quote.
And these sanctions that Huckleberry Sanders announces that we're going to go into effect are not the sanctions that the Senate and the House passed 5 months ago. And yes, they are sanctions. And yes, she is right. They are the harshest sanctions they've implemented against Russia, but it equates to less than a slap on the wrist. So it's not hard to have, like, the hardest sanctions. Like, look, I am the second smartest guy on the podcast right now. and that's a fact, and it's like, so I can brag about that, but it's not, look, if you're homeschooling your kid and he's valedictorian, it's nothing to make a bumper sticker out of. But he's still not saying anything about Putin, and he's not saying anything about the oligarchs. He's not going after the money. He's not going after where it hurts. And it is. It's just, but on the other hand, the great grift continues. And, you had, like, the cabinet member Zinke this week under heavy fire and scrutiny because it came out he's been taking private jets, which he was quick to release a statement. They were propeller planes. It's like, all right, Sir Douchelot, I get it. But if we're going to play the semantic games, and you had already mentioned it, it's like you went from draining the swamp to, like, bringing the most infestive people in here. You've already had two or three people lose their jobs because of taking private planes. What's his face? Treasury Secretary Mnuchin.
Steve Mnuchin, yeah.
He's been flying around on military planes, which, it's one thing if you rent and I've had to be in situations where you rent private planes. You can get a private plane from here to San Francisco for about $25,000. A military plane is about $25,000 an hour. He has spent millions of dollars flying around on military planes. Then you have, other people, like, taking trips to Wimbledon and all this. Ben Carson ordering a $31,000 table for his office.
Yeah. Right, and he insisted upon ordering the furniture apparently because, it came out that the person in charge of ordering the furniture knew about the caps and went and pushed back on Carson and said, "Look, we're actually over our limit here as far as expenditures go." And he insisted, and did the person get fired or left? I forget.
Yeah.
But then apparently Ben Carson denied that he knew anything about the furniture cost ahead of time until they dug into some emails in which he and his wife are kind of basically, I guess, shopping for this said furniture, and it came up, and it's obvious he knew about it ahead of time. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out that he's ripping off the country. I mean, yes, we're splitting hairs. Yes, there are worse things, and there are much larger grifts, as Jacques has told in many podcasts prior. But it's just a microcosm of what's going on.
But it'd be okay if this wasn't the same people who go out of their way to slice, and dice Meals on Wheels. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, we can't afford that program, but you can afford. I mean, what Mnuchin alone spends on military flights in the calendar year 2017 eclipses with what the federal government had spent on Meals on Wheels. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so one guy, private flights, feed thousands of shut-in elderly people. Yeah, no, sure, that's the way to go. And now another thing that just came out since we put this rundown together is poor Donnie Jr. and his wife getting a divorce, which now it turns out it's like it might have been happening for a while. Maybe all those pictures where she really looks miserable. Maybe she realized, oh my God, I'm married to one of the worst people on the planet. But it also, the kind of divorce that they filed from, it looks like because the Trump. And why did McCabe really get fired? Why is he going crazy this week? Because it turned out that Mueller crossed the red line that Trump had set last year. Looking into his personal finances and his business finances would be a red line. And it came out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that, yes, the Trump corporation or the Trump, I almost said
organization.
Yeah, I almost said university. How'd that work out?
Yeah, that's all part of the umbrella corporation.
But they had their finances have been subpoenaed, and they are part of the Russian investigation at this point. And by them, the way that they're divorcing, it could be a way for him to quickly move assets. Oh, we're going to get divorced, quick divorce, 50-50. You go take this money to the Cayman Islands. Maybe we get back together when I'm done shooting an elephant on my next trip.
Yep.
And look, I would not stoop to saying I hope the next elephant he shoots is a Republican. But, if anyways.
Elephants can be Republicans too.
Yes, they can.
And can pitch.
See, there's nothing in the rule book that says an elephant can't pitch. Thank you for grounding it. But before you blow the Trump whistle, which
I'm shining right now.
I think I sent you the tweet from All Star Tommy last week. It's like when Joe said he's blowing the Trump whistle, he's not fucking around because I guess I had talked past the Trump whistle last week, which was
respect my authority.
You will. Which was a red line for me to go past. So are we done with the great?
I don't know. There's a lot of Trump, Russia, Stormy. There's a lot of words on this paper.
We'll round out the Stormy thing. The interesting thing about that is she has already sat down and done her 60-minute interview, which isn't scheduled to air this Sunday, but next Sunday with Anderson Cooper. Cittadino is going completely nuts, and now they're trying to move the case to federal court where in California, where lo and behold, he has just appointed a bunch of federal judges.
Oh, all of a sudden he's interested in California.
In California, right. So she's a resident, he's a resident of New York and Washington, she's a resident of Texas. Sure, let's move the trial this
nice, yeah.
And saying, but here's the great thing, and whether it was an oversight, because last time it was, he didn't sign the non-disclosure. This time his name is on the paperwork to sue her, and they're going to try to sue her for $20 million. That's like each time she's talked to a media outlet, $1 million. Like, yeah, all that. But he put his name on it, which at the end of the day, it's like, why are you suing somebody for something you never did? Like, if there's nothing here to shut her up from, why are you working?
It just ties her up in court and keeps her out of the media.
I think tying her up is what got him in this. So honestly, in 3, 2.
Don't count down my Trump whistle. That's supposed to be a surprise to everybody.
So by the time we record this podcast next week, unfortunately, I will not be able to be part of it, but the boys and management are going to do the walk in Boston.
Oh, great. Fantastic. You mean you can't rent a wheelchair for the day?
I probably could, but getting, and
by the way, you won't, I'm stopping myself here because I'm realizing that even if you had a wheelchair, you couldn't get around in Boston next week because it's going to be covered in another 3 feet of snow. Now you'll know the plight of the handicapped. Shovel your sidewalks. But yeah, that's another thing. By the way, here's a little tip. If you are responsible for clearing your pathway, make sure it's wide enough for somebody who has to use a wheelchair to get, all the way to the curb. And then, if there's a ramp there, fucking shovel the ramp. That's right. I said it.
No,
I'm going out on a limb.
God bless you, because like I said, last weekend, I can't go out. Here's my neighbor just came over and snowplowed our entire driveway.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, no, that does throw a wrinkle in it. But if that storm's Tuesday through Thursday. I said Tuesday through Thursday for all the California fucks. Yes, storm from Tuesday to Thursday, which would be the fourth storm in 20 days.
Yeah. So what do you want? I mean, I knew we were jinxing ourselves, and I don't believe in jinxes until they happen. But we had this mild winter in New England, and everybody was talking about, wow, we had such a mild winter here. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold,
not so fast.
Yeah, hold my beer, said Earth.
Oh man.
But yeah, another footnote about the march against gun violence. You mentioned 60 Minutes is not going to have the Stormy Daniels interview this week. Actually, last week, because this episode is Monday.
Let's do the time warp again. It's just a step to the left.
Right. Okay, so when you hear this, the Stormy Daniels interview will be next week on 60 Minutes. But yesterday, you would have seen, of course, because you watch 60 Minutes all the time, that the Emma Gonzalez and David Hogg and a bunch of other kids from Parkland are being interviewed for 60 Minutes.
And we've been saying this since the shooting that, we're hoping this time is different, and it really has been. And the kids are all right. But seriously, when you think about it, when you do the history and you realize that, Martin Luther King started marching and organizing marches at 21 years old. I mean, Malcolm X was in his late teens, early 20s when he became.
So they were late bloomers.
They were late bloomers, and what is just so amazing is how history is repeating itself. The backlash that the GOP is giving these kids, and when you hear some of the venom being said about it, and talking about Gonzalez's sexuality and her shaved head, it's what does that have to do with her not? She doesn't want to get shot. She doesn't want machine guns all over the place. How does that have anything to do with it? You're just trying to show everybody that you're a huge douchebag. Congratulations, you win.
And it's not like she's just a snowflake from some part of the world where she sees these atrocities going on in another part of the country and decides to step in and do something about it. She knew the people who were murdered. These are people who are directly affected. That's us as Americans after 9/11, second 9/11 reference of this podcast, not caring about, not wanting to do anything or complaining about 9/11 after it happened. It's you're just rabble rousing and you're just wanting to start trouble. No, something happened to us and we're pissed and we want to do something about it. That's what these kids are doing. They're reacting directly to something that affected their lives, has changed a lot. You think when Emma Gonzalez went to high school, she went in there and on her yearbook it said, I want to be anti-gun, advocate because, I witnessed, how many kids?
17.
17 kids. Yeah, I'm starting to forget the number, and that's wrong. I knew it was 17, but I stuttered there. And a good point about these kids being on television and this march happening all over the country on the 24th is that this keeps the gun violence and the gun control talk in the news cycle. People complain that, we're just going to forget about it and then the next shooting is going to happen and then, it's just going to repeat itself. This is the nonviolent way in order to keep the gun control dialogue going. And when these people tell these kids to shut the fuck up, just consider the source. Consider where the loudest voices of shut the fuck up kids is coming from. They're coming from the Republicans. They're coming from politicians, and they're coming from people who are being heavily influenced by powerful organizations such as our friends the NRA. So consider the source. Consider who, and if you're one of those people who aren't in the pocket of the NRA and are telling the kids to shut the fuck up, you may want to look at yourself in the mirror and say, why am I saying this? What is this? What is it about these kids that frightens me? Why am I afraid of these kids talking about taking awful, awful things like assault rifles out of the hands of kids and all Americans, really? Like, what is?
Yeah, can we start with the kids? Can we just say, can you meet us halfway and say, okay, we won't let assault rifles in the hands of anybody before 21. We can't even get that,
right? Well,
from that side.
And they're starting to in Florida, as we talked about last week, which I also called out as a shitty stopgap because it's going to make Republicans look fine. It's going to make them look not fine and dandy. So when the next election comes around, they'll be like, oh, see, we were, we're not all hardline. We're not, in the pockets of the NRA. We can make concessions of some sort when it comes to gun control, which is great, but this needs to happen, and this needs to continue to happen. And we're not the people to do it. Unfortunately, you and I, we have no power to do this because nobody listens. I mean, not to discount Richard, not to discount Biff and All-Star Tommy. You're all fine people. You're our people. We love you. But we need people like Emma Gonzalez and David Hogg and all these other kids.
And I love the fact that the kids aren't. I mean, two of my favorite clips that I saw this week. You saw lots of walkouts all over the country. Then there was a couple walkouts where, her name is Rose. Blanking on the last name. I think she was in New Jersey. One girl, she just walked out.
One kid. I saw there was a one teenage boy in North Carolina. He's videotaping himself. He's like, I'm literally the only person to walk out of my school.
And congratulations, kudos, and thank you to all the kids who walked out. But the kids who walked out where there was one kid and you did it, you have more balls and did something braver than I've done in my 48 years here. And I mean that. And it's like, and the fact that a couple of them got suspended and stuff.
I've read stories where there were kids, I think in an Alabama school, that were, as they were walking out, it wasn't like a wholesale walkout. It wasn't one of these inclusive schools that supported the students. They were being heckled and ridiculed by the teachers and the faculty as they were walking out. This isn't America. I mean, granted, freedom of speech and all that bullshit, great. But these are who you're deciding to target. Like, this is the demographic that you're going to eviscerate. This is going to be your claim to fame. Is that in the annals of history, you're going to be proud to tell your grandchildren, yes, I yelled at kids walking out of school to protest gun violence in America. I was one of those people, children.
If you don't want to watch a history documentary, but you watch Forrest Gump and you see George McGovern and the people blocking the school, and again, my ignorance, I apologize for the girl who, won the court case to go to the school.
Right, Brown.
Brown versus. Do you want to be one of those assholes standing on the sideline yelling at that little girl going to school
with a Johnny Unitas haircut and the thick glasses, like those,
that's what
super Republican douchebags.
That's who you are. Like, when you watch this footage, if you're from Mobile and you see the hoses being turned on, the marchers, are you like, that was my granddad? He was a great American hero. He was keeping them colored folks in place.
By the way, those people who were being hosed down in Birmingham and all that those were teenagers,
right?
They were the same age as these Parkland kids.
And they did it. Look, we got a long way to go. But if you told those kids in Mobile or the bridge in Selma, that they walked across, hey, in your lifetime you're going to see a black president. You wouldn't believe. You probably wouldn't have believed it. And boy, once we had a black president, did we find out how much further we had to go.
And hopefully in 30 and 40 years, these kids will be looking back and telling their kids, yeah, when I grew up, assault rifles were everywhere. They were literally everywhere. Wow, really? Can you imagine? I mean,
Right, the fact that we're aspiring to be Australia.
Yeah, well, they have Mel Gibson, but they also have Chris Hemsworth. So
little give or take, yeah. But I'm really bummed. And you know what? You're right, because I do have one of those knee scooters. Maybe I can go next next Saturday if it happens. But I'm very proud that, that my boys want to go. We don't shield them from these things. There's a difference between indoctrinating, which maybe there's a line I'm crossing there. But I don't change the news when this stuff is on. I listen to the news radio. I listen to, podcasts, like ours, but with smarter, more informed people. And they hear all this stuff and they understand what it's about. Like, look, the oldest one understood, I don't think he really understands in context what Nazis are, but he understood, like, there were bad people who wanted to tell, say awful things that we're not saying they don't have a right to say it. We're saying we're choosing not to listen, or we're choosing to drown you out with saying peaceful things versus hateful things. So all those kids who are doing it, seriously, it's one thing when I watch a football game and my hero is like somebody like Julian Edelman, who's like 20 years younger than me, and I'm wearing his jersey. A little pathetic, agreed. And now these 16-year-olds, these 14-year-olds, some of them 18-year-olds, they are truly heroes. And so far, it hasn't gone away. And with Martin Luther King and some other people who've come in the past, they didn't have social media. Well, they did have the power of television, and television was covering it, and that's why we have all this footage. But these kids' voices aren't being squashed. And you can't squash them. So there you go.
Keep it up.
So you want to move on to the next thing, or do you want to do a defunct sponsor before we get back into the yucks?
Yeah, why don't we do a defunct sponsor? And this week's defunct sponsor is special. I don't know if you heard. I don't know if you listened to the news. I don't know if you get all of your news from our podcast. If you do, shame on you. Toys R Us has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which means that they are officially closing their doors. It could be this week. It could be next week. Who knows? It could be one of those things where they just literally shutter the doors on all of their stores and without warning. So in honor of Toys R Us, I myself, and I think Jacques as well, being Toys R Us kids. Were you a Toys R Us kid?
I was. You know who else who was a Toys R Us kid? Gilbert Gottfried does a great rendition of the Toys R Us. If there was only a way to hear that before the commercial.
Well, let me see. Let me go to the internet. Hey Siri. Oh, my real Siri turned on. Crap. Play Gilbert Gottfried singing the Toys R Us theme song. All right. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. There's lots of toys at Toys R Us that I could play with. From bikes to trains to video games. It's the biggest toy store there is. Oh, I don't want to grow up, because if I did, I couldn't be a Toys R Us kid. More games, more toys. Oh boy, I couldn't be a Toys R Us kid.
And now our defunct sponsor.
I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. They got a million toys at Toys R Us that I can play with. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. They got the best for so much less. You really flip your lid. From bikes to trains to video games, it's the biggest toy store there is.
Gee whiz.
I don't want to grow up, because baby, if I did, I couldn't be a Toys R Us kid. More games, more toys. Oh boy, I want to be a Toys R Us kid.
So, once again, in a segment I like to call, How Can I Be a Misogynistic Bastard When I Pay Attention to Women in Comedy History on my fledgling podcast.
Part 3.
Do you have anyone before I dive in here?
No, I mean, I don't think women are funny. That's my Jerry, by the way.
Oh, and I wish... Who's your favorite female comic?
I have to say Paul Lynn.
Which, seriously, every holiday, I will always hope that there's a secret Paul Lynn. Paul Lynn, VJ Day. What was some of the other ones? Visit VJ Day.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't know where we're going with this, but
St. Patrick's. Anyways, let's get back to women.
Getting back to women.
And the history of comedy.
Yeah.
Mabel Normand. She
already funny. I'm already laughing. That's a funny name.
Not only was she one of the more famous actresses of the silent era, she was also a writer and director who had written and directed a bunch of Chaplin, movies and stuff like that. So she had a great 20-year career. And you think about that. You think how hard it is, it was a big deal last year that, Wonder Woman was directed by a woman and stuff like that. This is 100 years before that. And she is writing movies for, when you think of like the biggest stars now, there wasn't a bigger time in their own day than Chaplin was. And she was writing, directing, and starring in movies, with the likes of him. She was also a longtime collaborator with Fatty Arbuckle. Sadly, she was also a witness for Fatty Arbuckle in his awful, absolutely awful, the demise of his career, being falsely accused. But she directed, she wrote and directed and starred, in dozens and dozens of movies in the golden age of the silver screen.
Yeah, I'm just looking her up on Wikipedia. Obviously, we all know who Mabel Normand is, so I didn't have to, get into the weeds of who she is and what she's about.
In Los Angeles, one of the things that I used to love to do, like before kids, I would go once every 2 or 3 months, and then even after them, about once or twice a year. The last fully functioning original silent movie theater is right there in Fairfax. And I would go on a regular basis, and they would always have like different festivals, for this actor or for that actress and stuff like that. Yeah, and she was like I said, when you see her face, it's like, and you go back, you're like, oh my God, like, you just have seen her in so many, like I said, like, Chaplin and other movies at the time. Honestly, there was a 10-year period of time where there wasn't two bigger people, what Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis were in the 50s, early 60s, Chaplin and Fatty Arbuckle were, is it the aughts, like the zeros, through the teens. And again, to have, this pioneering woman who wrote, directed, and then she ended up like opening her own studios. I think there was a couple of Chaplin, before Chaplin opened his own studios, she had opened a studio that, produced a bunch of those movies as well. She died early, like a lot of people, I think like influenza.
I'm reading she died of tuberculosis. And she was 37 years old.
Yeah. But I don't know if it says how many movies she wrote, how many she directed and starred in. But and back then, people, people cranked out movies back then like porn people do now. It's like, in a 4-year career, she did 203 movies.
And then movies back then were, I think, 10 minutes long. So
right. But again, it's like, was it easier or harder to make like 10 minutes of film back then? Like the planning and the cost, and there was no special effects.
Just the logistics of getting a camera and film and incorporating that together was a feat in and of itself.
You didn't have like the lighting that you did now in studios. That's the reason why Hollywood became Hollywood, is most things were shot outside in exteriors and stuff like that. The only special effects you had, if you wanted film to look fast or look slow for things to speed up because he couldn't change the speed of projectors, you would literally just crank it through either faster or slower. It's amazing the things that you had to plan as a director for stuff back then. And again, one of the things I've always liked about the silent movies, you had to say so much more without any words, without dialogue. So it's like, you would have title cards and dialogue cards. But most of those movies, you had to say it with mannerisms, with actions, with props, and with staging and stuff like that. So to produce a movie back then, albeit they're 10, 15 minute, 20 minute movies.
I'm looking at the partial filmography, and there have to be 100 films on here,
right,
between the years of 1911 and 14, 15. 16. Wow, this really goes on and on. But yeah, she was involved in a lot of movies, and then I really hear that in the movie Chaplin, the Robert Downey Jr. movie.
Yeah, Marissa Tomei, right.
plays her. So that was interesting to read.
I mean, if she's big enough that 100 years later, 90 years later, you're having Marissa Tomei, who was just coming off of...
Or Tomei.
Tomei, sorry, just coming off of her Oscar, win, and Robert Downey Jr. before... Was that before all the shit or just after all the shit?
That was before.
That was before all the shit, right.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, so 80 plus years later, you have a major feature star playing her because she was that prominent a person in Chaplin's life.
Right. So kudos to Mabel Normand. Actually, we do have an excerpt from one of the movies. So if you want to listen.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Could you play that?
Yes.
All right. Awesome.
She hasn't lost a thing.
Fantastic.
It still holds up today. You know what? It still holds up.
You were right. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So again, how can I be a misogynistic bastard when I pay homage to the pioneering women in comedy?
I thought you were going to honor women in comedy by telling one of your great women in comedy jokes.
Oh man. Like, why do women have such small feet? So they can stand closer to the sink. So they can stand closer to the sink, So
they can stand closer to the divorce lawyer.
Anyway, speaking, no, we blew the Trump whistle.
Yeah, we're gonna go right on to
sport. So after things didn't work out very well for me, the first Sunday in February, I swore off, football, and I'm sticking to that. I'm surprisingly sticking to it, although every couple days I get 20 texts saying, "Oh my God, Malcolm Butler went to Tennessee. Oh my God!" And the Patriots just lost Deion Lewis.
No, you can say we. I know you.
The royal we.
And I know that when you say we, you mean we.
I do. I really
so say
do.
it and don't spray
Own it.
Yeah, own it. Okay.
So, but here's the thing: the rabbit hole that I refuse to go down. I guess there was very cryptic Instagram congratulations to Deion Lewis from Gronk and Brady, basically saying, "Good for you for getting out of here." Things down and one Patriot place are not going well. And again, leading up to before the playoffs started, there was those big articles. The whole Brady is pissed because after a 17-year career, he's still being treated like a rookie by Belichick, who is pissed that Kraft sided with Brady over, the Jimmy Garoppolo thing. And everybody's pissed at Belichick because he gave Jimmy Garoppolo away for a song. And the same thing, I guess Gronk has been very unhappy with the whole, Brady's mentor there, like Guerrero, who Gronk was going to, who was told he can't come on the sideline. So all the palace intrigue that is going on has continued. And again, what did everybody say? Winning heals all wounds. Winning makes all that go away. Didn't win.
Yeah.
Didn't win. 503 yards, didn't win. Best performance he's had in a Super Bowl, didn't win. And now it's the drama's getting worse. There's more people exiting Foxborough than coming. I'm still not reading the blogs. I'm not, turning into the sports radio and stuff like that. I tune in for the Bruins games. I'm watching that because, it's the Bruins, and I follow the Bruins a lot harder after the Super Bowl. And luckily they're doing great, but I'm not getting sucked into the rabbit, surprisingly.
So you're not getting misty-eyed over Amendola leaving.
That was the first one when I heard Amendola leave. And of course I'm bummed. I mean, I won't go on about how important he's been to the team the last 4 years, especially this year without Jules. Yeah. But, and I'm going to say this, and I mean this, fuck the Patriots. They've lowballed him. He, for the last 3 years, has gotten a 1-year contract, like a 1-year contract with a 1-year option, and he has taken less money to stay every year. With Jules coming back, hopefully, they weren't offering him half the money Miami was going to pay him. He's proved himself. He won you a Super Bowl. He got you to a Super Bowl. He was great in the Super Bowl. And the fact that you're going to lowball him again, and look, we don't know if Gronk's coming back because he's talked about going to the WWE and retiring. We know we just lost our premier running back, sweet feet, Deion Lewis, and who really knows? I mean, I expect Jules to come back and be great, but you know what? I mean, it's one of those things. It's like when Bork went to the Avalanche all those years ago. Good. The Bruins had fucked him. The Bruins were fucking around.
And he won a cup.
Anyone like he would have stayed if I won't get into the history of that, but the reason nobody in Boston was upset that Bork went, is that, and nobody is upset that Amendola is leaving because he's done the take the hometown discount year after year after year. This is his last contract, and the way he plays, I mean, his concussion and his injury things, he more than anybody. The one thing that I will say, and I'm saying it on the podcast, I mean it. I've heard that somebody asked me, what do I think of Dominic Sue coming to New England?
Now, who is Dominic Sue?
Dominic Sue is a fucking psychopath. I mean, truly, he is a psychopath. He played like his first 6 years with with Detroit Lions. He's a defensive lineman. I mean, he's been suspended for stepping on quarterback hands after the play. Like the play's over, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, look down and step on Aaron Rodgers' hand. And he's done that before. He has stepped on people's nuts and stuff like that. And he'll try to play it off like, oh, I was just trying to get up and I tripped over the guy. It's like, well, he was on the other side of the field. You tripped over a guy that you ran 20 yards. I mean, he's also one of these overhyped guys. He's one of these, not Bosworth, like a bust kind of thing, but he's never won anything. He's never won in Detroit. Now, well, in all fairness,
right? When you tie both his hands behind his back and make him,
he's a complete psychopath. And like they were saying, like this past year when the Patriots went down to Miami and they lost at the end of the season, it's like, don't play Brady or get him out of there, because Dominic Sue is the kind of guy's like, we're out of the playoffs. If I get suspended 3 fucking games, I don't care. But if I can ruin Brady's career, I'll do it. He is a complete psychopath. He is a complete douchebag. He is a bad dude on and off the field. I think a lot of people thought I was kidding with my absolute love for the Red Sox for 40 plus years, crying like a baby in a bar, calling my old girlfriend who was a big Sox fan with me, during the last couple pitches to have her on speakerphone in 04. Because I absolutely, but when the Red Sox management rightfully showed the door to Tito, and then the ownership went in and butchered him, completely shamed. I'm like, I'm done. I am done with these assholes. I'm done, and I've never watched a game since. I will not watch a Patriots game if they bring in Dominic Sue. He can fucking take a knee on the flag for all I care.
Oh wow. I'm hearing this high pitched squeal. I think it might be your wife. I don't know. I just heard her. I heard this disturbance in the force.
Sign Sue, sign Dominic Sue. No, I will be really upset. But I'm not following the draft. I'll hear how the draft went. I expect them to draft a quarterback in the draft coming back. This week was free agency, and that's why it was a big frenzy. That's why, in the matter of 3 days, you had Amendola leave. You had Malcolm Butler leave, which was a foregone conclusion and stuff. But the whole Palace intrigue about Brady being upset, fuck that. You guys will want and again, had they won, it's all it literally is ticker tape parades. All this stuff works out, and now I guess in Tom versus Time, there was a cryptic thing football doesn't have as much meaning now. It's like he's ready to, it's like, okay, you went to the owners and said, get rid of Garoppolo because I'm here till I'm 45. You leave before you're 45, Tom.
He went on the Colbert Show this week and said basically the same thing, that he's not slowing down, and he's got many more years ahead of him.
Good.
Inside him.
Right, but Joe you had sent me the heads up on it. I'm like, yeah, I'm not watching. I'm not. I just talked a lot more about it than I thought I would, than I wanted to. Surprise! 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 Surprise!
Surprise!
What am I doing? The Gomer Pyle impressions.
Yeah, I don't know, you're funnier.
No, but I'm not getting into the Palace intrigue. But I will say, NHL playoffs right around the corner. The Bruins are playing absolutely amazing.
You're not into March Madness?
No, I like college basketball, but I guess.
Oh, you're not. So that's right. You're not a degenerate gambler.
No,
I come from a long line of
degenerate gamblers. No, I'm not. I'm not the White House aide who was escorted out, and it turned out because he's betting tens of thousands of dollars on games, and they're afraid he's susceptible to. Because look, if you're in Washington D.C. betting tens of thousands of dollars, you have to be in the casinos to place the bets. In the casinos, so he's betting with people who, let's say,
They know people.
The bent nose industry.
Yeah.
I know a guy.
A lot of waste management.
It just fell off with Truck Incorporated. So that's why they escorted him out, and they saw him in the hallway, grabbed him. It's like, I got to go get my coat. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You're leaving now. But hey, got hired the very next day by the re-elect Trump committee because, nothing like surrounding yourself with good people. You're shut down. Oh!
You said the T word, man.
I did. I'm sorry, Joe. I'm sorry, Tom. I'm sorry.
All right.
Well, that brings us to my favorite time of the week.
Sleeping.
Oh, God, you have no idea. Well, if I'm going to go to that 31-hour marathon in 6 weeks, I better start prepping
Catch
now.
a snooze during Iron Man 2.
Agreed. No, there was a couple lines.
Lines.
Gary Shandling was in that.
Yes, right. Senator Stern.
And he had that great line where when he's pinning the
award.
Tony's going to get an award. He's like, well, I only have one request. And it was, a cut to him getting the award from him. And he jams it with it. It's like, yeah, it's funny how much one little prick can hurt.
Yeah, he is great.
But that said,
your favorite, I guess, part of this stupid show is the random video game review of the week. So that means I'm going to go over to my video game wall and pick off a game for me to video game for you.
I'm happy to go over and get it, but I fear we would have a Cherry Chase falling moment in which I accidentally knock each and every game and piece of memorabilia off the
from
shelf.
New York. All right, let's see what happens.
All right. Do, 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 do,
I'm going to do the old press your luck.
Okay.
I'm not looking. I'm waving my hands.
Big money, big money, big money, no whammies, no whammies, big money, no whammies, no whammies, and stop.
All right. You got a Flocati rug. Wow.
Don't forget to get Pat Contry's book.
I got it.
All right.
Oh, boy. Ugh. Yeah, we need somebody with some sort of authority to guide this segment. I didn't look at it. I almost stupidly looked at it.
That.
I almost looked at it.
First podcast.
Oh, my God. So, all right. So I pulled out a couple of Nintendo tapes a little further out than I expected because they're all jam-packed in there. But it's in the R's, and I have to guess which one it is. You know the gag, right? It's not Road Blasters. It's not RoboCop. I don't think that's the one that's up there. Or Rambo, maybe. What the heck is it? I'm gonna guess Robo Warrior.
You
I got
nailed it.
Hey-o. Robo Warrior. It's a game I haven't played. Damn it, Joe.
Could you read the back? Because last time it
has a Blockbuster video sticker on it. How great is that? And some glue.
Oh, dude. Oh, you are fucked.
Well,
if you haven't returned that, the overcharge.
Oh, my God.
You're going to a Blockbuster.
I know. I think, they bought this at the Toys R Us, which is ironic, too. Robo Warrior by Jalico. The cover art is this sort of glossy-looking, Battlestar Galactica-looking guy. He's holding a gun with a Nerf orange tip, so that you know that it's not like a real gun like the ones we're trying to abolish. I don't know. I'm guessing it's about a warrior robot going out on a limb, Robo Warrior. So let me
have you and I will cop to it right up front. I've written book reports based on the cover.
There's a classic Simpsons one where he has to do Treasure Island. And he goes, it's about a pirate with a patch over his eye. And on the Bart Simpson scale of 1 out of 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, I give this a 9. Bart, would you care to tell us the name of the pirate? And then it's like he runs through like a Rolodex of like Blackbeard, Captain Ahab, and then he tells the wrong one. And he has to sit down. What a nice story, Joe. Thanks, Joe. I'm going to go look up Robo Warrior.
Okay.
Yeah. Robo Warrior.
So if you have played it, what do you think you would have given it? Based on the cover. On the Joe scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 the highest.
I give it 2 stars. And he gives it 3.5 stars. I got to play this fucking game.
What the fuck?
Yeah, what's wrong with me? It's an action game. It was developed by Hudson Soft and published by Jalico. That means a whole lot to everybody. This action title will test the mettle of even the hardiest of NES addicts. This top-down, side-scrolling maze contest has you guiding Zed, the cyborg, through an apocalyptic world. That's a big word for a 12-year-old. Called Altiel. Who gives a fuck? It's a nice game. I mean, I got to play it.
Yeah, but 3.5 stars. Well, what are you doing after the podcast?
Nothing. I'm going to play Robo Warrior with
Thank you.
Is it a one-player game? Yes, it's only a one-player game. Sorry, Jacques.
That's okay. If you didn't own this piece of NES gold, what do you think you'd be shelling out for it in the open market?
I think I'd be willing to part with maybe $6 of my money. $7.94, huh? How about that? I was pretty close.
Hey, 3.5 stars, dude.
I know. What's wrong with me? But this does have some glue on it, or is it? Wink.
It is from
Wink.
Blockbuster, which the story behind how you acquired said Robo, and that was his whole evil plan. I'm just gonna at the height of Blockbuster. Joe knew the wave of failure was coming.
I know. I could smell it a mile away. You know what? To be honest with you, I never had growing up like a Blockbuster or rental card. Because you needed a credit card in order to open an account, and my mother did not have a credit card. Like, this is the 80s and 90s, and she just did not have a credit card. She believed in, like, saving her money and spending it, which is crazy, I know. Well, how do you not spend money you don't have?
Thank you. So, you watching anything good things on other than your Wheels of Fortune reruns from the 70s? You watching
any Netflix or anything?
What was I going to ask you? Are you caught up to date on Just for Laughs?
Wrong title.
Oh, damn it!
Fucking it, man.
What is it?
No, okay. What's the first word? It's not just. It's
anything.
No, it has to do with laughter. It's
for laughs.
Funny.
Funny you should ask.
Yes.
God damn it. I hate this show. I see it almost every day in my house with my mother-in-law.
You know more about it than I do because I never watch it.
Oh, because you I
don't know. I don't say it because I have a life or I have standards or anything like that. I'm just,
you don't have an old Korean woman sitting on the couch for 12 hours who doesn't know how to change the channel. So we get up in the morning, we put it on channel 7, and we call it a day.
Yeah, I know. I love channel 7 now because it's not an affiliate. It used to be like an NBC affiliate, and now they're on nothing. So they play news and they play syndicated shows all day. They're kind of like TV 38.
Yeah, they're let's
or
see.
Channel 56.
I'm going to see if I can go through the lineup. Or maybe I'm thinking CBS. But she watches Hot Bench.
Yep.
And then you got Wheel of Fortune.
Well, how does Wheel of Fortune? No, Wheel of Fortune.
No, Price is Right. Price is Right.
Okay, that's channel 4.
So that's what you watch. Whatever channel 4 is.
Yeah. But then you have to flip back to 7 because I know the midday lineup. I think.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's good. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on at 12:30?
Yeah, she watches that.
That's channel 5. So she's channel flipping, motherfucker. She's going from 4 to 5 to 7 because 7 carries her in through the afternoon.
The other day, management left the house and committed the holy sin. I think it was like the 14th commandment that got busted, where the night before she was watching Apple TV and didn't put it back to regular TV.
Oh.
So her poor mom sat there. So she had to drive from Lexington all the way back home
to hit the input button.
Hit the input button, and she's like,
that's like the kryptonite for old people.
Oh,
God fucking damn this input button.
So
what's going to be our input button, Jacques?
Well, honestly, here's what's really sad. It's like the TV in the system we have now. There's a button on it, big blue button. You can hit the button and say, Channel 7, NBC, the Dinah Shore specials, and it will find it on like YouTube where you literally just you hit the button and it tells you what you want. So
we might not even have that. Yeah, everything will be voice activated and tracked by the NSA.
We're all going to be plugged into the Matrix long before.
We're pretty close.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly, the trajectory we're going. We're plugged in the Matrix. Which way do you want to go? You want to be in the Ready Player One world, or do you want to be in this world?
I know.
It's, not a hard decision. But
what are you watching?
The new Ricky Gervais stand-up on Netflix. Don't know the name of it. Doesn't matter. It's just the new Ricky Gervais. Humanity. Fucking fantastic. What little I told you about it. Instead of going with the humble, self-deprecating, he's going the absolutely other way. It's like, I'm at my house, which is huge, which is fabulous, which is, you're never going to live in a house like this. Anyways, and then he goes on, and the best thing about it is, Joe and I with our management have both, got into arguments before or discussions, which in my case turned into lecture series about the norms of the past and how we're not supposed to, whatever. And he goes well out of his way to say, it's a fucking joke. A joke is a joke, and you can laugh at a joke. And if you can't laugh at a joke, then you're really fucked, because if you can't laugh at a joke, then you might as well, tie the noose around your neck, pull the car in the garage, let the engine purr you to sleep, however you want to.
You know what's funny about not laughing at jokes? That's an ironic statement. But do you know what's funny about that is that in order to appreciate a joke, I think you have to appreciate the irony that goes along with it. You have to realize that the joke is being told, and if it seems offensive, it's being told from a perspective of they are purporting for this sort of joke to be a truth, wherein in fact we know it to be a falsehood. But do you know what I mean? So it's the old switcheroo, you can say that this stereotype is this, or, this is why this, because of the stereotype. And I know you're kind of perpetuating stereotypes a lot with a lot of humor, but you're also commenting on the stereotype. You're also addressing the stereotype. You're also talking about the stereotype and also pointing out how foolish those stereotypes are in the context of a joke. You know what I mean? You know that the old saying, it's easier to catch flies with honey than it is with vinegar. If you can point out the atrocity of something with a joke, it kind of softens the blow. It's not like coming out and saying, well, this is wrong, and I think this is wrong, and this is a bad stereotype, and this is, we shouldn't be doing this, we shouldn't be doing this. Granted, that's one way to do it, but then the other way to do it, to catch the attention of maybe those who aren't willing to listen to somebody yelling at them that this is wrong. Maybe showing them through a joke that these types of stereotypes are incorrect. And doesn't it sound ridiculous when I make this type of joke? You're laughing because you know it to be false, but I'm purporting it to be true, as if I were believing in this. So I'm dancing around this, and I'm maybe overanalyzing comedy at this point. But Jacques, tell an offensive joke.
Oh man,
I hate to put you on the spot. Any offensive joke.
And wow, okay. There's two zebras, and one of them is talking to the other, like, are we white with black stripes, or are we black with white stripes? And he goes, well, I'll go ask Grandpa. And he goes and comes back, and he goes, Grandpa says we're white. Well, how do you know? How does Grandpa know? He says, because we are what we are. He goes, well, how does that make us white? He goes, if we were black, he would have said, we is what we is.
Okay, see? Now let me deconstruct that joke, okay? Now, the stereotype is that black Americans don't have proper grammar, okay? Now, it's funny because we know that that's not true, that most, people of both sides, either white or black, have bad grammar. But the stereotype...
Have you seen my spelling?
Yeah, exactly. Jacques would be the first one. Yeah, if the punchline were, if we were Jacques, we would have said, we is what we is. And it would have been just as funny.
No, I would have said we are what we are, but it would have been spelled R.
Right. It would have been the Toys R Us R.
R, right. Thank you. Which, how I have that on my keyboard is just fucked.
I think your computer just learned to spell the R backwards. But do you know what I mean? So you put out there that if you're a knowledgeable person, and then there is danger in that, because if you're telling jokes that to somebody who's a fucking idiot, or who is a racist, or who is a misogynist, they're rooting for the Archie Bunker. You know what I mean? So they may also think, okay, well, maybe it's okay to act like this because Archie's acting like this, or because Ricky Gervais is saying it, I can say cunt, you know?
Right.
And, well, okay, granted, he's from England. It means a little bit something different there. But we have to sort of know that, okay, he's saying these things, to, bring attention to the fact that it is bad. Like, you're not supposed to be... Like, you shouldn't go out there and be Ricky Gervais in real life. He's doing an act. This isn't real. And to call people out on Twitter for trying to be funny, granted, there are people who go too far or say stupid shit. And it's their right to call people out and say stupid shit. But you want to talk about the one offensive thing that Ricky Gervais talked about in his act.
There's a festival place in Asia where they eat dogs. And look, I know everyone's like, oh my God, eating dogs, that's horrible. You know, dogs aren't looked at the same way around the world. I mean, you know, Indians look at like, you know, people eating cows like it's sacrilege. So it is what it is. But in this festival, like, so in this festival, unfortunately, what some people believe is that if a dog is tortured before it's eaten because of the adrenaline, because of the endorphin, whatever is given off, while you abuse it, it actually makes it, you know, taste better. It's sick. I know it's barbaric. And there was 2 people torturing a dog to death. And Ricky Gervais says, look at this beautiful animal being tortured to death by these 2 cunts. And somebody, you know, tweets them back saying, did you have to use that language?
Yeah. Like, that's what you zeroed in on. You know, it's just sort of like big picture atrocity, small offensive word.
You know, but it is. The whole special is about that. And yeah. And, you know, that's the other thing. It's like people forget, you know, with the Ricky Gervais, we have no idea what Ricky Gervais is like. I mean, and like I said to Joe, it's like last week, I hate sounding like the name dropping guy, but 20 years I got to hang out and be friends with a lot of celebrities. It was funny because Joe and I went out with management after last week's podcast, and she mentioned, who was the celebrity that she mentioned that you're like, you never told me you knew him?
Was it? No, who was it? It wasn't like Gary Shandling or something.
Yes, it was Gary Shandling.
Okay.
We met him, and I'm not going to get into the whole Hollywood douchebag story, but yes, I spent an evening joking around with Gary Shandling. Completely forgot about it. But I got to play hockey, and you know, Biff got to play hockey with him for a while, and John, an all-star, with Mike Myers. He was a regular. Mike Myers might be the quietest person I've ever met in my life. Very, very sweet, very nice. I think he felt really comfortable because there was a few people who gave a shit, but most people didn't give a shit who he is. He is not Austin Powers. He is not Wayne, you know, and people literally forget, like Ricky Gervais might not use the word cunt around the house with his wife. I don't know. He doesn't have kids.
Single, yeah.
You know,
I think he's a single.
No, he's been with the same woman since 82.
See, I didn't know that. Do you know why?
Who has written like 14 best-selling books.
Oh my
something
God.
like that. Right. But they've been together since like the early 80s, and they don't have kids, which is part of the stand-up, you know.
Okay.
It's really great. I would watch it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. When people take things too personally. But he did. He had a whole thing about much more eloquent than I can definitely do about.
And definitely more eloquent.
It's a fucking joke.
Did. Yeah,
it's a joke. Like, you know, my management is Asian, so of course she's a woman. She's Asian. She can't drive. Well, when in reality, when we lived, you know, at one of the houses we lived in right by the beach parking was a bitch, man. And it's like I depending on what side of the street we had to park on, and I would get home from hockey at like 2 a.m. I can't look over one of my shoulders because of surgery. It really hurts for me to put my arm up and look over the shoulder if I'm backing. I would go in the house and get her to parallel park. I mean, so the you know, I can make all the jokes I want about Asian women drivers, but she can parallel park a lot better than I can in that.
Like
thing,
a mofo,
you know. And that's the thing. It's like, you know, it's like when people want to be upset about, you know, like you said, like, you know, is that really the big picture here? Is this really what we're, you know?
And no, we shouldn't be perpetuating stereotypes, but at the same time, we shouldn't be ignoring these things, these ugly things in this world. And we should be calling out how ridiculous they are, and probably maybe share a laugh in how ridiculous they are, and knowing that these things are bad, and that we don't act like this in real life. This is that everything you see on TV, most of the things you see on Twitter or on the internet, it's all like Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, and we're merely actors. And of course, he said it better than that, and probably in better English, but. None of it's real. Like, don't act like this in real life to other people, to each other.
I mean, you pick your battles. It's like when Biff was here, or in the locker room, real locker room talk, and you saw what locker room talk with Biff and I. The worst thing, I'd say the worst things about Japanese people to Biff.
Yeah.
And, you know, and knowing that it's like, you know, and I don't have to explain. He knows, and all the friends know. It's like, yeah, there are stereotypes. You know, one of our guys from hockey, a really good friend, the epitome of Jewish lawyer. And if you want a good Jewish lawyer joke, you call Guy, and he will roll off his favorite 20 of them. Yeah, there's a difference between, yes, there are stereotypes. Stereotypes are based on something. And if you're not afraid to, you know, to laugh it off, you know, it's like, and here's the thing. It's like the last stereotype that is is appropriate or that isn't looked down upon is drunken Irish, because today, very appropriate. How many people, like, it's a badge of honor to be throwing up by 6 p.m. tonight.
Yeah, I know. And again, maybe in 30 years, maybe our children will look at our humor and go, "Wow, that's like blackface." Honestly, they could be looking,
all the way from Alabama.
They could be looking at us like, wow, talk about like what assholes, what fucking like unaware, sanctimonious assholes. Like they think that they're holier than thou, and they think they got their shit together, but in reality, they're just assholes.
Well, it's funny, Joe and I we were talking about the Man Show earlier before we were recording, and you were saying like Jimmy Kimmel did a blackface, did a Karl Malone, and that's probably the last time that there was an acceptable like blackface thing. And I'll dig it up, because it's like now it's one of those things where my kids see it. Like I'm gonna say it was 97, 98.
Don't do it, man.
I'm doing a comedy show, and I create I create a character called Mel Otto, a Siamese twin, half black and half white. I was a black guy only because I didn't know any black guys. It was like we had no budget, we had absolutely nothing, and I did. I found other actors by putting things out there, and I look back and I think, oh my God, out of context. Like if you see that kid,
that's not going to be your Twitter avatar.
And it was the most racist thing ever. Like,
to be fair, he was wearing purple face, deep,
it was
dark purple face.
But the wig I had was pretty epic. And one of the skits was, the gay white half was upset because he didn't make the basketball team, but I did. It was just, stupid. Anyways,
yeah.
So Ricky Gervais on Netflix, parenting tip, Joe.
Don't do Ricky Gervais routines in front of your kid.
Mine is, and I put it on the sheet, I'll read it verbatim. When life gives you lemons, you make a Luigi cast. I showed Joe the clip. Maybe I'll look. If two people write to Facebook or to Twitter asking for the clip, I'll put it up there. So I broke the foot last week, and I had to go to the orthopedic this week. And they cast it. My foot was swollen up still so much, so I got to go next week and get another cast. And the guys had 10 different color tapes, and he's like, "Hey, what color cast should we make? You want to make it green for St. Patrick's Day?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. What the hell? I'm Cuban. Why not?" And so, but then like management said, "So, we should have put blue there and make it look like Luigi." And the guy's like, "Jump back up." Joking, because I'm not jumping. Get back on the table. He puts, blue stripes, and then management goes the extra mile, goes to the store to get white medical tape just to put the L on it. And Joe, you saw the tape. Was that a stellar parenting moment?
It was. You said it yourself. You don't need to give him any more Christmas presents. You could just play that tape of him flipping out over you having a Luigi-styled cast on your foot. It was magical, and it was actually very heartwarming, and I kind of hate you for it, because I've never done anything so sweet for my children.
Honestly, all I had to do was break my ankle in 3 places to have my 7-year-old love me. So, hey, shitty stuff happens. Find a way to spin it. He absolutely loved it, but truly never reacted like that. But if 2 people tweet and say, or Facebook can say, "Hey, post that clip," I will happily post a clip.
And by the way, I want to congratulate Jacques on soldiering on for 2 straight podcasts with a broken foot. If it rains out, if it was raining out and I had to go to your house, I would call off the podcast. I'd be like, "Hey, you know what? I'm not going to make it. My tires are kind of balding. I don't know if I'm going to make it. There's like a zillimeter of wetness on the ground." But Jacques, to his credit, even today, he was at a party with some friends earlier this afternoon, knew that we had a limited window in which we could do the podcast, but he had no ride. So what did he do? He called an Uber with his family and came over, and most of his family, and came over and limped down, scooted his butt down my basement stairs.
Not humbling at all.
No, and I won't be posting that video on Twitter someday. But, congratulations to Jacques on just, soldiering on. Like he says, a broken foot is far from the heart,
Don't forget.
And what, Jacques?
And don't forget,